So I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that you've got the correct type of funding in place when pursuing a property project, particularly when there's works going to be happening to that property. So heavy refurbishment works, for example, if you're doing a commercial to residential conversion, or refurbishment works that don't necessarily require planning. If it needs to be funded in the right way. I've seen time and time again. I've had people come to us looking for funding when they've exhausted their own funds, so they've used potentially, say, like a term loan to buy the property in the first place because it's the most cost-effective way of doing it. So either a commercial mortgage, if it was an office, for example. If you bought that office with a commercial mortgage, but then you go for planning, say, to create residential flats, for example, the best way to fund that kind of thing isn't with a commercial mortgage in the first instance, unless you know the planning's going to take a long time and you've got no early repayment penalties on the mortgage. The reason I say that is, it's probably the most cost-effective way of doing term lending, but if you haven't got the funds to build it out, or you run out of funds, what eventually can happen is, if you start doing works to that property once that term loan is in place, then you potentially, if you're taking it back to brick and making it uninhabitable, then you've most likely broken the conditions of the loan in the first place. So you've got the potential that the lender, if they ever found out, could call the debt in, and you don't want that to happen. But more importantly, if you start ripping a property apart, once planning's come through or not, or what, it goes back to brick, you're actually devaluing the asset. So when it comes to actually raising money to go and finish those works, for example, when it gets valued, it can quite often be worth less than what you actually paid for it. And I've had an instance of this in the last week or so, where a client approached me. They had bought an office with a view to turning it into residential flats. They bought it with a commercial mortgage, and they've actually started, they got planning, gained planning. It took a year or so, I think, for them to gain planning, and then they've actually started works, but ran out of money and now need to refinance the building. But the building, a valuer has come out and valued it, and it's worth less than what he paid for it 2 years ago because it's midway complete. Now, we are able to raise the funds for to finish the works, but it's